Welcome back. In this session, we are going to look at the solution architecture for our project. As you can see, Azure Synapse Analytics has a huge number of components. Most importantly, there are 4 different compute options generally available. These 4 compute options have a lot in common, but they also have their differences. Having said that, we can use any one of them for the project that we discussed. My objective in this course is to give you an overview of all of these components, but with a deeper look at Serverless SQL Pool. So we'll start with a solution that uses the Serverless SQL Pool as the compute engine for the end-to-end solution. As we discussed, I've already exported the data from the Taxi and Limousine Commission website and prepared it for you. We'll import this data manually into our data lake raw container, otherwise referred to as the bronze layer in the industry. We're doing a manual import here because the data I've set up is to give you the opportunity to learn about more data types rather than dealing with just CSV files. If you are developing a project for your company, you will be using an automated solution such as Azure Data Factory Pipeline or a Synapse pipeline to get this data at regular intervals directly from the website or API. We have some data discovery requirements on this data before taking it further. We will explore the open row set function offered by Serverless SQL Pool to do the discovery directly from the files themselves. We will also look at creating external tables and views to make the job of the analyst easier in this section. We'll then take this data and process using Serverless SQL Pool to ingest into the ingested or the silver layer. The data in this layer will have the schema applied as well as stored in the columnar format Parquet. We'll create partitions where applicable, and also we will create external tables or views on this data so that it'll be easier to process the data further. We will then create the aggregations required to satisfy our business requirements. The output data here is referred to as the gold layer. This is the data that brings business value. We will also create external tables or views on this data in the gold layer so that we can use T-SQL to query the data. We'll then use Power BI to report from the gold layer. Power BI will connect to the Serverless SQL Pool to query the data from the gold layer. That is, the Serverless SQL Pool accessed the query engine for the presentation purposes. As part of this section, we'll also look at both Power BI Desktop as well as the integration of Power BI within Synapse Studio for this use case. We want to build the project to production quality. That means we need some kind of scheduling and monitoring required to keep the pipelines running on a regular basis without manual intervention. Also, we want to be notified if there are any issues. So we will be using Synapse pipelines as the scheduling solution for this project. The main focus of this solution is Synapse Serverless SQL Pool, so we will use Serverless SQL Pool extensively, but I will give you a quick introductions to Synapse, pipelines, and Power BI. And I would encourage you to look at specific courses on those technologies if you want to learn further. This is the architecture and design pattern we are going to implement first. As you can imagine, this architecture is one of the many solutions we could have designed. Synapse Serverless SQL Pool is not the perfect solution for all of these processes. So I will take you through the pros and cons, and especially how Spark Pool or data flows can better serve the transformation layer. We'll then look at replacing Serverless SQL Pool with Spark Pool for one of the ingestion and transformation logic and the benefits. We'll also look at how the metadata sharing between Spark Pool and Serverless SQL Pool helps query Spark tables from Serverless SQL Pool without any additional work. Again, we will integrate the execution of Spark notebooks within Synapse pipelines. We will also look at accessing the data created by Spark Pool using Power BI with the help of Serverless SQL Pool. We'll then look at the use cases for a dedicated SQL Pool, and we'll replace the query engine for the reporting needs from Serverless SQL Pool to dedicated SQL Pool. I appreciate this is an overkill for our requirements, but I just want to give you an introduction to a dedicated SQL Pool. As I say, it's an introduction and we'll need an entire course on dedicated SQL Pool to learn about it properly. We also have a requirement to do operation reporting on the data sent from the device in the taxis. We will be using Synapse Link for Cosmos DB to do that. We'll enable Synapse Link in Cosmos DB container to create analytical store and then use Spark Pool as well as Serverless SQL Pool to carry this data via Synapse Link's hybrid transactional and analytical processing capability. In summary, our solution will touch most of the Synapse components in this solution. As I said earlier, when you build a real-world project, you won't be using all of these components at once, and you shouldn't be. For example, you don't need the dedicated SQL pool unless you're building a warehouse solution with predictable performance, and you won't be using Synapse data flows as well as Spark Pool as the compute engine in the same project. Most of the time you'll choose one or the other. We'll be using all of them in this project so that I can teach you all of them. So please learn the technologies in the course. But when you come to design production projects for yourselves, please use the right tool for the right job. Help you understand the solution architecture now and the reasons behind the solution. That's the end of this session. I'll see you in the next one.